Today, we're going to have a conversation with Gary Prenevost. Gary's an award-winning author, ex-franchisor, ex-franchisee, business coach, and consultant, and he will share with us some key insights into the world of franchise. So let's get to it. Gary Prenevost, a pleasure having you on our podcast, and hopefully we'll have a conversation to share some of your wisdom and experience with our audience. Gary, first question is always out of the gate here we talked about is qualifications, quality, skills necessary to be successful in franchising. Do you have a top 2 or 3 favorites?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, William, it's a pleasure to be here. I've been looking forward to this. I think putting it to 2 or 3 is limiting. Let's look at 2 different components. There are traits, which are personality elements, and then there are transferable skills. I always look at things, and I've worked with over 2,000 people to help them figure out what the right business is. And I've studied top performers, like the top 1% to 4% franchisees. What do they do that the rest don't do? I've been one of them myself. So let's deal with traits first. I think there are several critical traits that a successful franchisee has. The first one is the ability to focus. And that comes over time as they learn and they're going from being not good or being good at what they used to do, starting a franchise, they're learning how to get good again. So they're starting over. So that people shouldn't be so hard on themselves when they can't focus yet because they're drinking everything all at once. But they should be able to have that ability to focus on the critical tasks, and that includes prioritizing, listening, communication skills. We are in the people business. The nature of business coaching, that is all about listening first, understanding what the customer needs, wants, what their pain points are, but listening in such a way that you can match the solutions that you bring to their needs. And I ran a training company, so I did this for 10 years. And it's not just at the sales element to get the customer, it's when you're facilitating change using the toolboxes that the coach has. So they've got to be able to listen and communicate in a way that inspires action. The third is tenacity, and closely beside that is resilience. Tenacity to me is no matter what is coming, I'm going to stay focused on my goals, tied to focus, but it's also that I'm not going to give up. I just like the underdog mentality. I'm going to go for the underdog. They're going to eventually win. And it's staying tenacious, going after the focus on your goals. Resilience tied to tenacity. We got to put up with a lot of stuff, and it's not all fun. There's a lot of challenges running a business. There are a lot of challenges around staffing, around marketing, around working with customers, around our own personal emotional swings. So being able to have that resilience to manage through it all. And then I think the other one, which is one of my biggest, is lifelong learning. If you're going to be a business owner, you're a successful business owner, you're going to commit to lifelong learning. And that shows up in the studying and, just being professional and learning and sharpening the saw on the skills that you need for your business. But it's also, William, in coming back to the patience and tenacity elements. When we have wins, we want to celebrate those wins, but we want to learn the lessons. How did I get that? And how do I get more of it? When we get bopped in the nose and we have failures and mistakes, ouch, that hurt. I don't want any more of those. How do I avoid it? And it's being open to the lessons, but you've got to be able to pause and reflect and say, how do we get that? And that was up to me. What were the other circumstances? So to me, those are the critical traits.
And you mentioned, you're right, because it's the mistakes that make the system better. When I talk to someone or ask someone about, or someone asks you why should I invest in a franchise when I could kind of build my own, you say because you're paying for the mistakes. You're paying for years and years of doing things and correcting them. And so, tell me a little bit. You mentioned that you had actually walked the walk and actually built your own franchise concept with your family, and tell me a little bit about that, how that worked.
Well, okay, so there's a couple of elements of family business before I really got into franchising. I was a banker, left banking to become an entrepreneur. I was that contortionist in the invisible box in corporate, so wasn't my scene at all. Uh, so we started live at artificial tropical plants in Toronto and became, over the course of 4.5 years, one of the largest interior scapers. But with all the family members, there was a lot of let's just say, wrestling over decisions and roles. And it wasn't what I thought it would be. And so I made a decision to leave after being recruited by a training company, sales management leadership training company. So I helped them start selling their licenses. So similar to a franchise, bought one of my own a few months later, and then did that for 10 years and built it up to 110 licensees across Canada. We were Canada's fifth largest training company. And along the way, I was one of their top franchisees or licensees. So yeah, I lived the day. I focused on leadership training, sales training. I've trained over 1,000 salespeople in that during that time.
And this is basically, this is considered white collar franchising services business. I mean, how do you differ that from I just said food service per se?
Well, to me, this goes back to the skills I was talking about before. White collar franchises require a lot more sales and marketing and prospecting. It's an outbound business, so a critical function for the life of that business is relationship building and prospecting and engaging the community and building those centers of influence, William, that are going to send you those customers. And you do a good job for your customers, those will be some of your best centers of influence. It's having a constant awareness on that. Whereas inbound retail, which bricks and mortar, whether it's food or otherwise, the owner, the transferable skills that the owner needs, they are managing people, they are managing processes and inventory and the customer experience, but they're not the face of the business. Their team is the face of the business. So I think that's a fundamental difference between white collar and other service-based franchises. Is the white collar franchisee is far more active for the life of the business and is the primary face usually.
And so the transition from basically your family business was actually, regardless of what the reasons were for you transitioning out of that. I could think of I could think of a few myself, being myself involved in a family business way in my early career. Um, how did that turn out to go from being an actual franchisor to turning around and doing sales and then eventually becoming a training company?
Well, that company was already established. I just came in when it had a smaller base of licensees, and we were very aggressive in growing it.
And so you grew it to 110 licensees. And so, how did you transit? So, what did you decide? How did you decide to get out of that? Well, why?
Uh, well, there was my partner was my wife, and we ended up splitting up. And it was part of the decision was that she kept the company. I went looked for other things. Now, FranNet, which is the franchise I now own, I'm a multi-unit franchisee with FranNet in 2002. I had been using FranNet as one of my lead sources for over 2 years. And Lloyd, my contact there, kept on saying, Gary, you'd be really good at this business. You should come over to here. And I kept on saying, Lloyd, leave me alone. I've got a good business. Why would I want to leave? Well, little did I know.
And you actually that so your career with FranNet, I know for a fact that it's been a good one. You also have served on several positions with companies like iFranchise and even organizations like the Canadian Franchise Association. Um, is that just part of your networking process, or is it just something that just giving back?
Well, there's a few elements. I don't do anything without intention and without having clarity on the outcome. iFranchise Group, I worked with them for 5 years, helping companies become franchisors. The intent there was to have, as I help companies become franchisors, I could help them grow and find franchisees through FranNet once they came on board. So we did that for several years. With the Canadian Franchise Association, I'm in my 16th year on their board, longest serving board member in their history, and that's just being a part of the community. I mentioned one of the components of successful franchising is being involved in the community. I don't care what business it is, what category it is. We are in a community. There's a geographic community. There's a business community, businesses with similar customers than ours. There is a faith community. There is ethnic communities. There are family communities. All of those are different opportunities to be mined. But that mining, William, it's not about how much can I get out of the community. It's what am I going to give to the community. I look at it as you've got to make community deposits before you can make community withdrawals. And it's being visible, being part of the community, building those deep roots so that people naturally think of you. And that's why I mentioned centers of influence. It's been instrumental in finding out who can be good COIs is by knowing what's going on in the community. People who don't engage the community are far less successful than those who do at the franchise level.
And that happens, by the way, on any kind of business
Yeah.
you're involved with. I mean, you're also a best-selling author, just the Unstoppable Franchise, which you wrote a while back. What? Give me a little insight on that. What to expect?
So award winning. I don't know about which bestseller list I'm on or not. So, but I have won awards for it. So the Unstoppable Franchisee, I took me 2 years to write. And what I did around 2018, 2019, I was really questioning. I was one of Franet's top 3 franchisees. So I've been number 1 franchisee in that system. And I was looking around and saying, why don't more franchisees do these things that are pretty common with the system? And when we're doing validation, our clients are doing validation on whatever brands, it was the same complaint coming up different ways. And the entrepreneur in me said, opportunity. So I went digging for, is this an industry problem? Is it a bigger problem? And so I interviewed over 30 CEOs, some of the biggest franchisor CEOs on the planet, some fast-growing CEOs of fast-growing franchises, and what are the top? What I asked the questions: what do their top franchisees do that the rest of the franchisees don't do? What are their traits and characteristics and behaviors, and what do they not do that the rest do? What do they avoid? And then I went to the top 1% to 4% performing franchisees, William, and asked them similar control questions. And the 7 drivers that are in my book are the intersections of all those interviews. And I got a lot of perspective, a lot of learning from experts, like multi-billion-dollar companies, fast-growing companies. So when I look at mindset, that is one of the most important things. It's my first driver, a next-level growth mindset. Again, back to the entrepreneur and that lifelong learning, the anticipation that more information is going to come. If we stop learning, we get into a comfort zone. That comfort zone becomes a rut. And Brian Tracy said many years ago, a rut is a grave with the ends knocked out. So.
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's so true. And mindset has a lot to do with it. I mean, it's in every one of not only our career, but also our life, our personal lives. When you set your goals and we call them targets, because it really, unless it's real, it's only a goal. I decided that I may want to purchase, or I'm looking and validating. When you talk about validation, looking at a franchise, what do you feel are the pertinent questions I should ask? You're the franchisor. What should I ask the franchisor prior to investing, or taking ownership of that franchise?
Well, so I've actually, with a top franchise lawyer, created a list of 107 questions for the Canadian Franchise Association. I can give you that link. There are, rather than specific questions, I want to areas. I think what do we need to know? That's, instead of what question to ask, what is the information you need to know? The most important information you need to know is, what is the work it takes to drive success in this business look like? What are the critical activities? In a business coaching franchise, that's prospecting, that's listening, some of the things that I talked about. What is the marketing? Another is, how long does it take to get to break even? These are questions you ask the franchisees. How many customers does it take to achieve my income goals? You notice that's a different question. How much money can I make? How
Mm-hmm.
much money can I make is the wrong question, because that is so dependent on the individual's ability to exercise skills and utilize the traits that I talked about earlier on. When somebody has a goal of $150,000 a year in income, okay, what are the work I have to do to create that? If somebody has a goal of 300,000, at a certain point, there's only so much of them to go around in the coaching business. So at what point do they start to cap out and start to potentially risk burnout? Or, hey, if I want to get to 500,000, how do I scale through adding coaches and recruiting people under me and building that organization? So different work goals, different income goals require different skills and different structures. So I think that's a
Yeah.
really important element that people need to understand.
And
What support is the franchisor going to give me along the way? So you mentioned earlier on why should somebody buy a franchise to pay for mistakes? I agree with you, but I think it's more robust than that. I look at buying a franchise as a time compression strategy. If you start from scratch doing the same thing, I don't need to buy a coaching franchise. I can join a coaching association and get the free content out there. Yeah, you can. But a good franchise, and let's take coaching out of it. Let's take all franchises. They will tell you from time of decision to buy your franchise to time of opening. Here's the things you need to do. Here's the things to focus on. Here's the things you need to avoid doing. And then once you open, here's the things you need to do, focus on. So based on all the learning that we've had all our franchisees go up until now, and some of that learning has been, look at, wow, how fast these people have grown by doing the right things. And some of it is, oh my gosh, look at some of these crazy things people have tried and it's burned a lot of money and a lot of time and it hasn't helped them. So don't do these things, do these things. And this is the type of customers you want to focus on. So all that compresses the time to get to break even, and it accelerates the time to higher income once you've got that pattern built.
yeah, and the wrong question I ask is always, how much money can I make? You know?
Yep.
Yeah. That's the number one question. It's always, if you're asking that question, I think it's might not be the right opportunity for you. Because again, how much money can I make is how much money do you need? I mean, there's some people that are happy making 50 grand a year and some people not happy making $500,000. So
Yeah,
it's,
and another one I get often is I need something with at least 20% margin. Oh, okay. So if your revenue is $100,000, are you okay with 20% margin? Probably not.
yeah.
So it's not about what the margin is. What is the unit economics? It's understanding unit economics, and what is the work it takes to drive the business to make those economics work.
And do you feel franchising is still as popular today as when we got started 20 years ago, 25 years ago?
I think it's more popular now. I think it's better structured, it's better understood, it's better communicated. One of the big shifts in franchising over the last few years is private equity coming in and buying franchisors and franchise systems and creating platforms where they have multiple brands. And these are not the buy, build, and sell at a fast pace. They want to cut their operating expenses and sell on that multiple. No, they want to build entire ecosystems and cross pollinate across franchise. And their long term holds. There's way more money coming in marketing, so attracting more people, attracting more of the right people to franchising. And I believe the franchise industry has matured. There's a whole movement around responsible franchising. It's not selling franchises; it's awarding franchises to the right people.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I was going to touch on that point uh, during that question is that I was going to touch on that point, responsible franchising, because there's a lot of, you walk through a franchise expo, be it in New York City or Toronto, and there's a lot of concepts out there that you kind of shake your head and you say, wait a minute, you're not even, you haven't even tried and proven the system, and you're already offering franchises. I mean, how are you going to support these franchisees? And you seem to wonder. So I think this falls on the shoulders of the associations such as the IFA, Canadian Franchise, and I think that that's part of it. The other thing is the private equity. It depends. what the goals are, because they have been said there was a time where hedge funds were purchasing out franchises to gut them and then sell them, and that didn't work so well either.
There's a great book by Alicia Miller called Big Money in Franchising. It's all about, came out earlier this year. I was one of her pre-readers and helped her find her editor, and publisher. She really lays clear the impact of private equity in a very positive way. It is something to be embraced and understood.
Okay, that's I really appreciate the time. I was wondering whether there's any kind of additional knowledge that you would like to share with us.
Oh, there's so many. I first of all, if we come back to my book, USA Today rated as one of the top 10 business books for 2024 to grow your business. So for your listeners, I talked about number one being mindset, the first driver. The second driver is awareness. And being a former trainer, I created the book, William, to be it an evergreen product where it's full of exercises that people can take and do them and apply that content to their own situations and make changes. So the second driver being awareness is all about assessing where am I at, and what do great business owners do? They're constantly looking at what is the data telling me? What is the information? Where am I at? Where I need to do, and what do I need to do to get to the next growth level? So I'm not going to go into all the drivers right now, but those are the important elements: is having the mindset, taking that constant awareness check, and then focusing operationally on whichever operational opportunities and challenges you have. But I think
yeah,
just one other point, and this is where I think most people go sideways, is only pick one or two things to focus on in terms of learning and growing and optimizing. Once you've optimized it, when you get to proficiency, you're good at something. And so if you're competent, you're okay at something. You get to proficiency, you're good at something. Top performers move from proficiency to mastery, which might take a couple of other years, a couple more years to get there. But once they master something, now they're ready to go to their next level of growth. And part of that journey is hiring people and teaching people, bringing them up to speed so that they're no longer having to worry about it. The hardest thing for people to let go of is that which we like doing the most. And sometimes that's exactly what's holding people back from growing.
Well, focusing on too many things is the old proverb: you chase two rabbits, you catch none.
Yep.
It's yeah. And it's if you focus and you focus in the right direction and put your right energies into it. Although it is hard because people get distracted. In our business, for example, you have scenarios where someone focuses, let's just say, instead of in awarding franchises, they focus on doing the level of coaching or training versus doing your actual number one function that keeps your business going is in awarding the franchise. And it's easy to lose sight because you find one of the items is a little more comfort in your comfort level than the other. And like you said, if you don't like to go out and chase leads and call, this businesses might not be for you.
Well, you touch on the comfort zone, which is one of my favorite things to talk about when I do keynotes. The comfort zone is what is exactly that, comfortable and easy. It's what I like to do because it's easy, but in the comfort zone, learning wanes and ceases. There's no new learning takes place. And matter of fact, we mentally atrophy slowly. But if we stay there too long, the business starts to atrophy. So top performers, William, do what others are not willing to do, even if they don't like doing it. They learn that discipline. Now, if everything you're doing is stuff you don't like, that's not a fun life. But if you have 80% of your business is fun and 20% is a grind, well, that's actually pretty good.
And do the grind first. I mean, get that out of the way in the morning. It's your to-do list, your frog list, whatever you call it.
Eat the frog, right?
Eat the frog. Do that one first thing in the morning. You know what? Why you wait till 3 in the afternoon? It's not going to happen.
We had an old saying in the train when we were in the training business is cooking breakfast.
Yeah.
Um, every day you got to cook breakfast. That was prospecting and building those small relationships, smaller accounts. Once a month, you go to a restaurant, like a nice restaurant. Those would be after 80% of those small accounts were done. Now you go after those next premium accounts and you get a few of those, but only so you spend 15% of your time. And then the third is once a quarter, you go to a smorgasbord, all you can eat. Those were the crown jewel accounts. But you don't
Yeah.
go after the crown jewel accounts until the 80 and the 15 are done. The
Yeah.
80% of the 15. So it's, in other words, you reward your way to higher performance, not ditch the easy smaller accounts to go after those big ones and go elephant hunting and not get any.
Well, it's been a pleasure visiting with you and just getting some insight on what we do, and hopefully we can repeat. I'm going to get into. I've just gotten into your book, so I'm a little ill prepared for this the book discussion, but I'm going to reach out to you again and then dissect that book in a little more detail.
I'm always happy to come back. I love helping people who I look. I was a business coach for 10 years, and I think we have one of the most noble businesses. I still do some elements of coaching, help people getting into the right business. So it's an extrapolation,
Yeah.
but the nature of the work, we change people's lives.
That is so true. That is so true. That is so true. Gary Prenevost, it's a pleasure again, and look forward to our next chat.
Thank you. All the very best.
Thanks for joining us today, and hope you have gained some valuable insights into the world of franchising. My name is William Lesante, and I would like to invite you to the next episode of the Franchise Coach podcast. Please make sure to like and subscribe and share with your network. Also, click the link below to learn more about franchising with Actioncoach. Thank you.